What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another weekly update. Last week, we dealt with a lot of chop, and it wasn't very pretty, to be honest. And rightfully so. There's a lot of misguided information on inflation. There's a lot of misguided information on vaccines, mandates. So there is a lot of stuff going on. In my opinion, what we're going to see, any kind of decline will be due to the Fed in the markets. I don't think any Delta variant stuff is really going to push us down unless there is an actual lockdown. Perhaps there's been threats of lockdowns if the CDC decides to go that way. We've seen some lockdowns around the world. But being said, I don't think the Biden administration, I don't think, will do that just because of the simple fact that it will kill a lot of businesses if they've even made it this far. I think any existing businesses, this might be the final punch to the gut if we do go back on lockdown. And it will, I think, completely destroy the country and the economy, the U.S. economy, if that does happen. We've seen what the first one did. We've seen the impact it's made on supply and demand. So being said, anything is still possible. But what we have this week, we still got some earnings. I think the biggest earnings I'm looking for this week are Roblox and NVIDIA. You got Roblox Monday after close and NVIDIA on Wednesday, I believe, after close. Yeah, Wednesday. You have NVIDIA after close. You also have Cisco. You do have Target and Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart this week as well. So those things are to keep in mind. Walmart and Home Depot are on Tuesday morning. Wednesday morning is Target and Lowe's. So you still have some big ones. There's some other ones, but those particularly are my main focus ones I want to look at. I want to see what's going on with the markets. The banks started to kind of sell on Friday. It looked like we were trying to pull back, but again, very stagnant. One thing to keep in mind, we do have FOMC minutes on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you might see selling going leading up to that because they've been pushing inflation so much. The Fed has. It's been all over the news. And then we had inflation numbers that came out last week that weren't nearly as bad. They were predicting like 7%, and I think it came in at 5%. So nowhere near as bad as they thought it was. But being said, inflation is going to be, I think the whole story behind transitory inflation and deflation is a strong possibility. But again, we have to see if we do go on lockdown, that is definitely going to cause inflation and some major issues. But again, also leads to me to believe that it's not going to happen. CDC is also pushing kids to go back to in-person as well. So that's something to go along with the whole Delta variant and essentially where we stand. Although the one thing that could be a issue is if the more things are being mandated as far as vaccines and anti-vaxxers. I don't know where you stand on that spectrum, but as far as the market is concerned, that could possibly be a black swan instance case there. So just be mindful of that. If something does arise from that, that could possibly get ugly. The whole China situation is kind of just dried out. It's still always a possibility that kind of fluctuates in and out. So there's no real bad news, but you do have to also remember there is a lot going on right now, but I'm just trying to fill you guys in. We have Jackson Hole next week. So being said, Jackson Hole, we'll see if Powell changes his statement and see what is going on. Does he believe in tapering? Is that something that's really going to happen? There's been a lot of talk through the Fed, and this is why a lot of stuff has just been stagnant. Not to mention low volume, it's just part of August. But big thing is that Powell, is he going to go on the other side of actual tapering? And now they've talked about it, and Powell's already mentioned this, that it's not actually tapering the bonds. It's more likely to do with the banks. But being said, what we will see is is ultimately next week, because if it is, we are supposed to be tapering next month, which is what a lot of the Fed members have been saying. We will see if that comes true. I don't think it's true. The amount of counts in overrun hospitals for the vaccines, a lot of families are still struggling, trying to get back at it. A lot of people are not back to work. That being said, there's this whole revolution on people wanting to work for themselves and stuff too. So it's something else you have to keep in mind. So there's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle going on here. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's why we're seeing so much chop and so much wicking. I mean, if you are a scalper and you play range, this is great for you. If you are a swinger, you like to swing, or you like to just invest, you're not making much out unless they're very short overnight swings. But most of the action has been dramatically in the morning, that first hour, and that last hour. Everything else in between has been pretty chop there. So what are we going to do this week? Again, we got FOMC minutes. I think that we might get some selling going into that. Aside from that, we are at all-time highs. I don't really know how it pushed up. Apple had a strong push. Facebook had a strong push. Tesla attempted to break range, didn't get it. So this week will be interesting to see what happens. QQQs, it hasn't made all-time highs yet, although it started pushing back up. Value and banks have been pushing a lot last week. Let's see if that continues. That's something to keep in mind. See if that's where the money is moving around. Bitcoin is also making its run up. Towards the end of the day on Friday, it pushed past 47 and still been going. That's something to watch, because if that's the case, and gold has also been running really hard. It's finally starting to break above. I got a strong resistance at 167 on GLD. Could get rejected pretty hard there, and see if we continue to sell or if we break that. That's a good key level there to watch for gold. But Bitcoin, again, if Bitcoin continues, you're definitely going to want to keep your eyes on MicroStrategy and Coin and see where they head and see if they continue on their pattern. But as far as a watch list, I do have a watch list. This is more for, I'm looking for more bounces on these. These are pretty imminent. That's why they're listed here. I have a lot listed, but ultimately these are the ones I think we get initial bounces off these. Might get a good couple of runs off of these, but definitely not something you're wanting to be swinging along. I don't like to be swinging long stuff unless not in this market, because we're high and we haven't sold off and consolidated and found a base yet. So a lot of these swings or intraday plays will be more based off of quick movements, perhaps a couple hours during the day, perhaps even an overnight swing, even a couple days. But ultimately, I understand that the market is so high and we haven't had a pullback. Maybe the Fed will correct that between this week and next week. We'll see a little bit more of a pullback for better entries, because I think, again, going into the end of the year, I think we're going to finish very strong. People are trying to make up for a year where we've had a lot of chop. We chopped a lot in March, or in that February and March period, and then we had 2 good months, and then now we're starting to chop again. And so a small correction, I don't see any big correction. There's no imminent danger for crash, although that can always change. I can make this video, and come Monday, something major can happen. The biggest thing is that it has to be new news. It can't be old news. Recycling, Delta variant stuff, recycling, inflation stuff. The market gets numb to that stuff, so it's not going to tear the market down. We're not going to crash because of that. It has to be new news. So we're looking to see and trying to provide some kind of theories and what might actually come of everything that is currently going on to perhaps pull the market down. So the first one I do have is Square. I like Square because of it has been kind of wedging over the past couple of days, which is something I've been watching on the hourly. But it is hitting the 200. One thing I do like on the daily, again, it's at support and it hasn't had a bounce. So I'm looking to see if we get another day of consolidation here. If we do break above this wedge is what I'm looking for, or if we open above this come Monday. So maybe around that 270 mark If we do, I want to see where this goes, and we could possibly try to retest that 270 or the 287. Again, there's been a lot of price targets for 3. I believe there are some really high ones. I don't recall all the numbers that it had, but I know 300 has been a price target that a lot of people have had on Square. It hasn't quite seen that yet. It's come pretty close, but not quite there yet. So I want to keep that on watch. Snap is the other one I have here. Snap is, again, pretty high. A lot of these are pretty high, but it looks like it's retesting old resistance on the daily. And that's what I like about it, is it's finally coming into support. So there might actually be a really good bounce off of this come on Monday. You got to love TOS. Excuse me there. Got to love TOS. But if, again, same kind of play, if it does break here, it is holding strong support here. This has been a pretty solid base. It's been playing in this range. So I want to see if it holds here come Monday. We get a nice bounce back up to 80, possibly even attempt to re-break. If it doesn't break that point, that would probably cause a concern. Maybe this will lead us into a more downtrend and breakdown. It has been playing this range pretty tight, which is nice to see. But again, we want to make sure that it breaks that. It breaks to the upside. So you definitely want to keep a tight stop. But that 73.22 is something you want to watch. You definitely don't want it breaking that because we would start selling at that point. And something to keep in mind this week. Again, if the Fed are trying to take it down, they may be talking about tapering pretty hard this week. FOMC minutes might take it down. There might be something cause a concern there. Again, might see flat Tuesday, flat Wednesday until that news comes out. Roku is the other one I have, and I do like Roku for the same reason. We are coming into the 200 supports. Now, a lot of times when I try to grab these 200 supports, it doesn't quite hit 200, the 200 support on the daily. So you have to keep that in mind. It can come really close. This is why I come down to the smaller time frames to try to determine how much further it could come down. The 350, a lot of these have been selling off pretty hard. Against subscriber counts, there's no real reason for this to sell. They still did well, Roku. So that is where my support is. I do like that for this week. If it does hold essentially that daily mark, I want to play this for a bounce. I think you will get a good bounce out of this. Possibly even try to retest. If you look on the daily, we got a long ways to retest up here. That's far-fetched. I think this 397 a retest. I'd expect some kind of bounce if we do decide to sell to go any lower. I think it would at least bounce back up to that 392 mark. So we go back down to the hourly. So I do 392 is about right here. That would make sense. By the time this does start bouncing, at 200 will probably be closer around that 392 mark. And so we should see a retest of that 200 before sell-off. So that should be a nice bounce off of that, or off of Roku, and that's what I'm watching on Roku. Dropbox. They had a pretty killer earnings last week. As you can see, strong support there on the daily. Looking again for first bounce here on the middle Bollinger Band. It did break back through. It popped up, and it's coming back down for a retest. I want to see, again, this is a retest of old support here. So I want to see how much of a nice bounce we have off of this, possibly even go back up to 33 to do a retest. So I want to watch Dropbox for that. One thing I don't like about Dropbox, it doesn't move the fastest. So just be mindful of that. Although over the past couple months after that last earnings, it did fairly well and it's continued to push up. So something I want to watch. If it does hold that, I want to get in that. Probably actually longer calls on that one, to be honest. Datadog is the other one I have. This one is already up pretty high, but ultimately, because of earnings, it gapped up. But being said, I'm looking for ultimately, I want to watch that 200 on the hourly and see if we get a bounce off there. I think we get a good bounce to retest the middle Bollinger Band. So that should be a good couple point return there. So just keep in mind in that. That's what I want to watch. And then finally, I don't have it listed, but coin, I was talking about this earlier during with Bitcoin. There is a strong support here at this 253 mark. So you got top side support here. This middle Bollinger Band. I was kind of hoping we would kind of sell into this, but right after Friday close, Bitcoin jumped. So that's something to keep in mind. So I want to see what this does, but ultimately, I think I capture at least 30-point move. I think this might be one of my number one plays this week. Depending on how the market plays, your Teslas and everything are high. Facebook is high. Apple is high. Apple did have a breakout, but it is coming into resistance. So I haven't listed those. It's always good to watch those. If for some reason we start pushing up, because sometimes the technicals, especially lately, haven't been working out quite as planned. So just keep that in mind, and we'll see what goes from there. But that's pretty much what I got for this weekly update. It is long. There's a lot of info. There's a lot of stuff coming up to be mindful of when going into this week. So hopefully it's prepared you guys. If it has, remember to hit the like button on the way out and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.